koutou katoa, tēnā koutou ngā mihi, ni koutou katoa. I'm Anna Kominik. I'm the country director of Zephyr Airworks, the operator of a company called Kitty Hawk Corporation. I'm here today to tell you about a story, a bunch of Californian dreamers and New Zealand visionaries who have come together to bring together one of the world's first ever electric autonomous air taxis, starting here in New Zealand. I want to share some of the lessons and challenge you to some thoughts about how New Zealand can work its advantages even harder and be even more confident about what we can bring to the global commercial table as we have to move to this high-value, low-emissions economy. Cora is an entirely new species of aircraft. She combines electric power, self-piloting software, and vertical takeoff and landing. So she rises like a helicopter, and she flies on the wing, and she lands like a helicopter. No runways required. We're incredibly proud of Cora. She's the result of 9 years of engineering, and re-engineering, and re-re-engineering. And she's part of a Californian-based company, as I said, Kitty Hawk Corporation. We are one of 5 divisions in that organisation, and each one of them is looking at urban aircraft mobility, so looking at UAM, and how we can transform the way we get around. We're collectively part of an aviation evolution that is growing fast and is built on the legacy of 100 years ago of Richard Pearce and the Wright brothers, and I quite deliberately put Richard Pearce first in that. Where those aviators really took our perception of how we get around to a completely new level. They transformed our world. They brought us closer together, and they made the impossible possible. Fast forward more than 100 years and a few sci-fi movies as well. This New Zealand-US project is now looking at another transformation in the making. It is the start of the electric aircraft evolution. And I'd like to think that Wilbur, Orville and Richard would kind of get a kick out of the fact that this aircraft is a New Zealand and US collaboration, a truly international innovation that changes our concept of flight and delivers the type of aircraft that the world has been fantasizing about for quite some time.
This is an amazing moment in time. We are now at a point where it's feasible to build a new type of personal transportation vehicle that will take you to the air. Kitty Hawk is a California-based company, and at Kitty Hawk we are really proud to be part of this global movement to rethink, to reimagine how all of us get around every day. At Kitty Hawk, we know that technology is feasible because we are already doing it. Today, we're introducing Cora, a vehicle you've never seen before.
Cora is 100% electric and therefore emissions-free. Like a helicopter, Cora takes off and lands vertically. No runways or airports needed. Cora can cover trips up to 100 kilometers at speeds faster than 150 kilometers an hour. And unlike cars on the road, Cora will never be stuck in traffic. Cora is self-piloting, which means you don't need a pilot's license.
So Cora, you saw her flying. She has 12 lift fans. I'll tell you a little bit about it because otherwise I'm going to get a swamp of questions afterwards. She has 12 lift fans. Each one of those is a motor in itself. We can lose 40% of those motors and she still works perfectly well. She flies on the wing. She has a rear propeller, basically silent on the wing. The sound of the lift is about the same sound as a small helicopter, but a very, very different sound. You don't get that whine. We've got triple redundancies. We've got 3 flight computers. She's autonomous, so you're putting in a flight plan, and she's determining how to get there best, taking into account all of the different factors that she has to take into account. And I know there's a lot of nervousness in the current environment about that kind of technology, and that's something that we're really aware of and working really hard on. She has a ballistic parachute that comes out the back if it all turns turtle. We've never had to use it, fortunately. We have tested it with a crash test dummy, and the poor old crash test dummy got a stubbed toe, and that was it. So we're pretty confident that that's, as a safety feature, a fantastic opportunity there. And she's got 90% fewer moving parts than a helicopter. So a helicopter has about 20,000, 30,000 moving parts. Cora has about 2,000. So why did we come to New Zealand? What was it that brought this company to this country? 3 years ago, Kitty Hawk, my bosses, undertook a global search around the world to find a place with innovation potential and a common vision. After looking at 7 other jurisdictions, Kitty Hawk landed in New Zealand. 3 things impressed them: New Zealand's safety focus and strong regulatory environment, adherence to rule of law, transparency in terms of IP law and other ways of ease of doing business, and a common vision for a sustainable future. And I'll talk a little bit about that later. In our company, we say New Zealand chose us, not the other way around. We're privileged to be one of the flagship projects of the Innovative Partnership Program run by MB and sponsored by the government. And that program helps research and development intensive businesses like ourselves to connect, collaborate and innovate in New Zealand. We've taken no government funding and we don't seek it. The value of our partnership is in working through the enormous challenges that come from actually developing a new industry, not just certifying, but also developing the ecosystem. So our mission is essentially to deliver reliable personal flight that's accessible to everybody. That's a long-term goal. It's not going to happen tomorrow. Might happen in about 3 years that we've got something for the public to see and to be part of, but it will be decades before this becomes part of everyday flight. And I mean, why would we do that? Why is it just that a bunch of, people in California thought this was a good idea? There was actually a real kind of basic reason behind it, and that was the impact of congestion and pollution. That's what the first genesis and seed of the idea came from. So if you take one look at the traffic that dominates many major cities, you can see that mobility is largely broken. That broken system is taking its toll on our quality of life and on our planet. We believe that technology like ourselves, like ours, can give back people time, decongest our cities, and help manage pollution. Our world has been changed forever by the technological advancement of communication, and we're aiming to do the same for the transport sector. There's a lot of rhetoric around disruption, and we are definitely part of the energy revolution. We have batteries that we actually discard after they are 25% used, still got 75% in them. And the reason for that is safety. But that battery technology, something that can lift a plane with people in it, is hugely powerful. And that actually creates a huge opportunity for a whole lot of different thinking about energy. We ourselves see ourselves as part of an evolution rather than a revolution in terms of the actual aircraft. The motors and battery technology actually come from EVs, the sensing and automation, trends from autonomous cars, and the airframes and controls owing their heritage to fixed wing and helicopters. Our industry is rapidly developing. This is not science fiction. It's growing, developing, and there's an increasing amount of investment in it. So last year, the global air taxi business was valued at around US 28 billion. It is expected to reach more than 80 billion in the next few years. We're developing and operating in a fast-paced environment, and basically it is a race in the space. There are 8 other companies that are working at the same speed we are. We believe that we're at the front, and that puts New Zealand at the front as well. but everybody is racing to get a product to market and to actually transform people's perception of transport. So when I said that Cora is the result of 9 years of research, and this is important when you're thinking about the innovation evolution and how you actually think about innovation, we've actually had about 12 different prototypes to get to this point. So those are subscale, self-piloted. The one that's sort of second from the right there, that was a Collier Trophy finalist. That was our manned version and the first time that we achieved both vertical takeoff and landing. And that was about 2 years ago. But there's been an enormous amount of work that has gone into multiple iterations. We call it fast fail. And that is something that I know as a New Zealander we're not always comfortable with. And we don't always let ourselves be comfortable with. But these guys, they fail with joy. And they go for it and they keep on trying, that determination. And that's the wonderful thing about working as a US-New Zealand project. We get some of the pragmatism of the New Zealanders and this amazing optimism and joy of failing from the US. I could tell you all sorts of stories about that one. As the first ones in the ecosystem, we have to build it. Can you imagine? We don't have a market. How many of you would actually want to get into it? Well, there's a few. That's good. Sign up later. We have to actually build the market. We don't have a place to actually fly. We're testing in Tekapo at the moment. We're operating out of a working aerodrome where other flights are coming in and out. So we are actually part of the ecosystem, but we're not in an urban environment, obviously. And there's a lot around airspace management that we still have to work through. We've got the infrastructure, huge opportunities there. We can't do it all. So vertiport design, the energy infrastructure, what is it going to take not just to charge EVs in an urban environment, but also potentially vehicles like ours. And think about how hard it is to get airports developed in New Zealand. Now imagine trying to do dozens of those when we don't even know what the actual product looks like. So we've got a lot of challenges. And the really valuable thing in the relationship that we have through the Innovative Partnerships Program and through our relationship with government is being able to sit around a table with all of the agencies and a whole of government approach and actually talk through those big questions and what they mean for New Zealand and what are the opportunities and what are the challenges and where we can help each other and where we just have to wait for others to catch up as well, because this is an industry-wide project. It's not just about us. We can't just do, dare I say it, and apologies to those from Uber, we can't do an Uber. We can't just plonk ourselves into an urban environment and then demand that everybody allows us to stay there. Okay, so we actually have to build this from the ground up. And how we're actually achieving that is by actually working really hard to make sure that we have really good relationships with iwi, with community, with business and with the government, local and central government. We're working in partnership, we're looking at the things that we have to actually fix and do. And one of the things that I really want to say in that space is we have a New Zealand team now. They are young New Zealanders who we have hired. We have done a gap assessment of what are the things that they do not have as in their capability as a result of coming through the New Zealand system. Things like coding, things like being able to do aircraft maintenance off plans, very basic things that are going to service an industry, whether it be autonomous cars or autonomous planes or whatever in this area develops. And so it's actually working together on looking at what that pipeline of talent looks like. In previous roles, I have worked for a number of projects that have come to New Zealand and test and gone. Cue, thanks for the memories music, because that's pretty much all we have. We're really, one of my bottom lines in taking this role was that we embed the benefits in New Zealand, that we actually have a way that even if this particular project moves globally, there is something left in New Zealand, and that is a really important part of actually accepting innovation into New Zealand, is understanding that we have a value. And I want to talk about that just for a couple of minutes. New Zealand's brand is as much why we are here as any of the certification and partnership side. When we go global, the New Zealand brand is what we will also take with us. The fact that we have operated, worked in New Zealand, and hopefully certified, touch wood, that will be the thing that actually helps to carry us, because it is a credible, valuable, and strong brand. So we talk about our brand externally with our exporters and what it brings, but we can also start to talk about it internally. As we attract this kind of innovative investment, we need to think about what is the value of our brand and what does good look like. So not necessarily just saying thanks for coming and we're so grateful you're here. You know, the economic contribution is important, but there's also something else that we can get out of it, and we need to be, as a proud New Zealander, I think we can be even more bold about actually saying what that looks like. So where does this take us? As a nation, I would love New Zealand to be more confident about defining what we want, valuing ourselves, and having the confidence to ask. I'd like to see us moving from passive to active, identifying and seeking out what we want more of. And I want to see us actually building the opportunities that we get from innovative investment like Cora. So sometimes the right place, people and technology come together to change everything. From my perspective, this is the right place, we're the right people, and we have the right technology. So let's grab our moment to change everything. Thank you.
I'll just squeeze in a couple of quick questions before we break for lunch from Slido. A couple of people have asked, is this the Jetsons? Someone else says, will there be aircraft flying around our heads?
Right. Is this the Jetsons? No. And probably the ministers in the room would agree with that. So where we see this going is in very contained sort of basically air corridors, where we're actually travelling from A to B. We will not be landing on your lawn. We will not be landing on your roof. However, I would say that the number of property developers that I've had call me and ask what is the loading for a roof on a mall or a supermarket is growing. So, you know, it really is around those opportunities to go A to B. They will be air corridors that are self-defined, clearly defined, probably a bit like railway tracks in the air is the way I see it. And the second question was...
Sam says, could the used Cora batteries be used for housing and solar?
Yes. Yes, they could.
And someone else asks, how weather dependent is Cora?
So as part of the certification process, we have to go through a whole lot of very, very stringent tests and, you know, lightning, weather, ability to get down in an emergency. Those are all things. So we're a way away. We're at least 2 to 3 years away from actually putting somebody into Cora. And that is on the basis of the safety requirements we still have to meet.
And just off the back of that, Magnus asks about the safety measures to avert the sorts of accidents regarding autonomous vehicles. Yep. How are you looking at that?
So one of the really big challenges, and this is for all of those techies out there who would like a new idea of something to invent, is detect and avoid. We, at the moment, our entire airspace is pretty much managed by I see you, you see me, we avoid each other. And so, you know, when you don't have a pilot in the plane, as we don't, Cora has to be able to see that plane and avoid that plane. So we're still a wee way away from that, and that's the big issue that every jurisdiction is now working on. And it's a bit of a race because all of the big brand engineering nations, you know, Germany, Switzerland, Japan, China, they're all working really hard to try and crack that one as well.
All right, thanks very much. Really appreciate it.